Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Hans Pearson, CEO of the Store Local Group.
And I'm Mark Gregg, I'm the National Head of Revenue for Store Local.
In light of recent events, we thought we'd get some experts from all around the globe to share their experiences and give us something to take away and apply it into our businesses over the coming days and weeks.
We're really excited, so let's get into it. It's Mark Gregg here from Store Local. I've got Hans, the CEO of Store Local, and I've got Kevin Shi. So Kevin, thank you very much for your time. Obviously it's very precious at the moment. So perhaps to start with, if you could just introduce yourself, explain obviously about your business, and then we'll ask some questions from there.
Okay, so my name is Kevin Shi. I own a self-storage chain in Hong Kong called SC Storage. We have about 37, 38 locations right now, a bit over 10,000 customers. We've been around for 20 years, and we're mainly in Hong Kong and Macau.
And so Kevin, obviously it's pretty, and how are you experiencing with the coronavirus at the present moment in terms of obviously more about obviously your experience within the sites? So if I could be probably more specific about from a storage perspective, and then obviously we'll talk about customers at that point in time as well.
Okay, so China has first experienced the coronavirus as early as January. And prior to that, in Hong Kong, we had the massive student protests. So things hasn't been well for Hong Kong for the last 12 months. It's just like maybe 2 weeks of breaks, and then from one crisis to another crisis. So far, our rental, we haven't been growing. We've been flat. We've been able to boost up profitability by increasing our cost cutting, and also we're still able to raise rents up till 2 months ago. So we're still like making more money. But in that sense, last 2 months because of the virus, it's been pretty bad. We're not able to raise rents. We've been lucky compared to other businesses. Move out has not been much, but still we're not growing at all. How else? We have a new batch of customers that are saying they've been dislocated. Their store has been bankrupt, so they need to store things. So those type of customers has been able to subsidize or complement the people that's moving out. On the other side, because our back office is in China, because of the lockdown, they weren't coming to work, and they're supposed to be technically work from home. And working from home is not as efficient as working with a fast internet and site link at the office. So as a result, our default rate or our cash flow has gone down like 20% last month because everybody's working from home, and which is, so we had a huge effort to call back and collect rent this month, and luckily we've been able to recruit most of the rental in arrear this month for that. So going forward, in Hong Kong, they've sealed off the borders. We had a last wave of last minute people that came in, so we've been having a spike in new cases. But if this spike is been able to contain within the next 1-2 weeks, I think we're pretty well off having like very little cases. But having said that, the entire tourism, everything is blocked off. We're not, everybody that comes in has to be mandatory quarantine. So I don't think the economy is going to pick up for at least another 4 or 5 months if that's the earliest. Yeah.
So Kevin, just earlier you mentioned about the debt. It would be good to understand, like you said, the staff weren't able to be operating the site, and how did you get the delinquents back in their order? Because obviously a month's pretty quick to get it back into order. Is there any tips that you could provide to anyone out there, please?
Yes. We kind of scare them with the late fees, and some of them they do need the storage. In terms of cash flow, we don't usually do this. We allow people to prepay 1 year, but because we want to raise the rent every year. But because of the cash flow emergency, we allow some people with deeper pockets to prepay 2 years for 12 to 15% discount. So one person who prepays 2 years can probably offset maybe 5 or 6 people who's delinquent, right? And another thing that we do is before we would give them leeway. Some of our sites are still full, like 95, 96% full. And usually our contract says if you're in arrear for 2 months, we throw your stuff away. But for the sake of argument, we usually leave it to maybe 4 or even 5 months so that they have no reason to come back and complain to our staff or anything. But during times of crisis like this, we usually throw their stuff away like 2 months or 2.5 months max, because we want to keep the cash flow coming. We don't want any deadbeat people to stay an extra 3 months on beyond the deadline that we signed for them, so that new people who's bankrupt or who's being dislocated can come in with fresh amount of cash. So that's another strategy that we do. A third strategy that we do is we start changing our messaging focus. Instead of like making fun, like the usual commercial, we're like targeting more virus related. No, we're here for you. If you need to downsize, if you're dislocated, please contact us and all that. So that's more relevant to people, that resonates to people. And we're the cheapest in town. Like price sensitivity, that's also important right now in our market.
So with your marketing, have you've come at it from the angle of a compassionate angle? We're here for you sort of thing.
Also price.
And then what about pricing? So it's sort of two stages. So really, you're being fairly aggressive on discounting and being innovative in the way that you.
Very. I mean, we're pretty aggressive. We give them basically. We give them if they prepay, like, because we're also down in cash with the last month, right? If they prepay 6 months, we're throwing. If they offer to prepay 6 months, we're offering to give them 1 extra 3 months, one month extra. If they prepay 1 year, we give them 2 months extra. So we're not doing it to everybody. We're only doing it to people who are who are behind. We're doing it to sites that we're not full. Yeah, and also another strategy that we're doing is some of our sites are leasehold. Some of our sites that are freehold that we own, right? Some of the leasehold one that we own the landlord, the leases due. So my next strategy, and I hope I don't get to that, is to downsize, just to give back the site to the landlord. And because based on past experience, we can funnel close to 65% of the customers to our nearby sites. Mm-hmm. So by giving up some of the sites, downsizing some of our staff, and just funnel 60-70% of the site, we're actually making more money. So in the short and near term, it doesn't really impact our cash flow or our business operation. But you cannot keep on downsizing like that. I mean, you got to keep a certain size. I mean, this game is about scale, right? So that's like a plan B for us.
Yeah. And what about your employees? How are you finding your in-store employees being impacted by this crisis and the interactions they're having with customers? And how do you manage that?
They don't at the beginning, they couldn't find any masks, so we had to provide masks for them. They're kind of like, if there's no mask, they don't want to go to work, so you gotta work through their emotions on that. And then once masks become available, I start giving them like a quota to buy things to sanitize the sites. And honestly, I tell you, that budget went up the roof. We give them like, 2,000-3,000 US, and then went up to like 4,000. Like, I was like, what, are you bringing those things back home? So, I mean, you got to have a balanced line. I mean, it's okay to be compassionate with your staff and, buy sanitizer things, mask and all that, but you got to have a check and balance. I mean, if you don't, they may abuse it. They may just buy as much as possible because they're afraid, or they may even bring it home. So that's something to look out for. Yeah.
And what stage lockdown is Hong Kong and Macau in specifically, and is self-storage being regarded as an essential service? So are you able to continue trading?
Yeah, we're able to open. People, they discourage us going out to eat. All the restaurants are voluntarily closing at night, but you can get drive-through and pickups from the restaurants. McDonald's is closing dinner. You can buy takeouts. Some of the restaurants are following suits. They ban alcohol in all the restaurants and bars now. So you can still eat there, but they just don't want you to chit chat, get drunk, and start talking to strangers and all that, right? So that yeah. Parks are closing. You can go out. I mean the shopping malls are open. Everything's open. It's just, I mean, we got it pretty lucky. I mean, it's just that the bars are not open, the parks are closing, and they encourage you to stay home. But and I guess this next 2 weeks is crucial. If the number keeps on dropping, then I think they'll they'll relax this because everybody's like all the restaurants are going bankrupt because of this, right? If they don't, if the numbers is going back up, I think further lockdown is going to be due. So next week is pretty critical.
And is from this, obviously, you've got great insight and obviously plenty of tips. Like, how do you sort of see this playing out for the future, and what sort of things have you learnt that you'll probably put into place across your sites and even from a staff perspective as well?
I think you should have like a plan B. Like if your size of your storage is if your storage is of a certain scale, you should appoint like a special task force among your management people that says, because this also comes from my fire, right? When crisis happens, a lot of new guys start to panic, and then when they panic, they quit. So when I had my fire, my call center was flooded with calls with people that wants to refund what's going on and all that, and they start yelling at everybody. And all the new employees, they can't handle it, so they quit. So my call center had a turnover of 50% within the first 2 weeks, right? So what happens is you need veterans in your company that is willing to volunteer. Obviously, you pay them a bit more, right? So after that, I assigned like 6 people, right? That's been with my company for 10 years. So when shit happens, excuse my language, when crisis happens, the call center people are replaced by these veterans that will sit in at the call center and they know how to handle everything. They won't quit, right? And when things start to normalize again, then they come back out and then they do their own thing. I think an emergency task force for facing customers is important during crisis times, because new guys, they can't handle it.
And so if you go back on that, so between the fire and obviously with coronavirus, you put that into play. How did that? What sort of things would you say there that really worked? And are those staff members that, as you mentioned, they're obviously really critical. And you had the staff actually working from home, so obviously you had some pretty challenged times. Yeah, particularly from a customer's perspective as well. Like they would have been copping it pretty bluntly through the call center, surely.
Yes, now it's okay. I mean, everybody's in at it. We're trying to close one of the sites. We're trying to close one of the sites right now, and we're trying to ask the customers to move to another site, right? And then we're finding like 30 people doesn't want to come to the site because of some reason they're under self-quarantine. So if you have like a flexibility in your clause where like in times of crisis, with your permission or if you're uncontactable, we have a right to move your staff under like the supervision of a third party or something like that. That's another problem that we had during the crisis, because we didn't have that clause, and then they were trying to get compensation that's beyond what we offered in the contract. So they refused to come to open the storage for us to move their stuff to a safer place while the building was falling apart. So right now we have that clause in our site, like in times of crisis, if you're uncontactable or whatever, that we can move your stuff, blah blah blah, etc. Otherwise, you're gonna have a problem like legally, right? Or just move it. I mean, chances are, based on my experience, break the law, move it. Like I don't want to say break the law, but just move it first, and then deal with the legal complication later. Because sometimes not like one customer can stall your whole operation. That's going to be really, really bad.
And Kevin, given your background, you've been through, as you've mentioned, a major crisis in recent years with a fire. They keep coming. So you're probably the calmest man in the industry with this current crisis. But what would be your advice to self-storage operators in markets around the world as to what their daily priorities should be right now in the middle of this? What should they be focusing on? How should they be communicating to their staff and to their customers?
Daily communication is important. Monitor your cash flow. I think cash flow is number one. If your cash flow start dwindling down, maybe give some extra incentive for people to prepay, even 2-year prepay. If that worsens, talk to your bank, talk to your landlord, see if you can do a deferral payments. Cash flow is number one, and also opportunities. I mean, not so much in Hong Kong this time, but last time when we've been through a crisis, properties were going like industrial property were going like 40 to 45% like dropped 44 to 45% because the seller needed the money. So if you had money, then go for it. I mean, I was able to ask a lot of my customers to prepay me 2 years to get a bunch of cash last time around to buy a lot of property that was 50% off. So that really helped me. So it was like a slingshot position where it cultivated me to a higher level. That was like during the Great Recession in US. So look out for opportunities. If you have cash, if you have a lot of good spare cash, look for advertising channels that's usually very expensive. Maybe TV. They're starved for cash, but make sure it's long term. Like they'll probably give you 50-60% off now, but say, hey, I'll pay you, but give me it for at least 2-3 years. Strike for long term advertising agreements right now. And also, go into social media, see who you find is competent. Maybe they got laid off, and just start recruiting. I mean, you can't. It's time of like this. You gotta know which are the cream of the crop. And right now, everybody's getting unemployed and everything. This is a good time to also capture. So don't be so pessimistic, but look for opportunities as well.
Great advice. And Kevin, looking beyond this current crisis, how do you see your business? Are you spending time getting ready for the other side of this? And what's ahead for you guys?
Well, Hong Kong has a structural issue. I mean, ever since the fire, the new regulation makes the whole industry not profitable. So having said that, I mean, storage is good. I'd love to get back into the game if it's profitable, but like if we were to comply to the fire department, there's no way we can make profit. So having said that, storage continue to be a cash cow for me. Unfortunately, I don't plan to grow it unless I see another opening, and just continue to downsize and cash cow for now. But on a personal level, I think I'm gonna like be more prudent with my money. I mean, I lost a bit in storage REITs. I mean, storage REITs is good, but if things like if a global crisis like this, I tell you, the REITs is like an ATM for everybody. They just milk it. It dropped 50%. Some of the REITs, the industrial REITs, it just dropped 50% like that. So like after this, I'm just resetting my portfolio with like physical brick and mortar storage and also some REITs, but very, very stable. So there's a big lesson for me, but hey, I got through it. So let's just hope. And safety first. I mean, like, don't think about finance so much. I mean, your family or your health. I mean, I'm starting to get second degree confirmed cases all around me now. Some of them in the States, some of them in Singapore, etc. But I know multiple people whose friends got the virus already. So that's how close it's gotten. So just be careful. I mean, social distancing. Yeah.
No, good advice. I admire your energy and also your resilience, Kevin.
Thank you.
That's always.
I hope next time I talk to you is not about crisis anymore. I mean, every time I talk to you is always about handling crisis. I hope something positive next time.
Any other questions, Greg?
No, look, I suppose for us and for anyone across obviously Australia, New Zealand, it's it's about us obviously being able to understand, bed it down, and really work together as a future. And I think that's an interesting thing about the industry, is that people are willing to share. And Kevin, obviously, we thank you obviously for your time, and to share this sort of information is great. And I think that's a good thing about our industry, and I think that's something that everyone can definitely take out of this and crisis. I've personally been through some crises from a self-storage perspective as well, and probably having fellow peers that have obviously gone through it is really good. And you made a good point earlier about making sure you got really strong people, particularly for yourself there from a call center perspective, because you do cop it, and even the in-store staff do as well. And it's about that daily communication with them. So really take that on board, Kevin. Thank you.
No, that's good. I agree with all of that, and thanks again for your time. If it's okay, we wouldn't mind checking in another few weeks and seeing how this has all progressed. This is pretty live.
This thing is exponential, so a week from now is a completely different story already.
Absolutely, will be old news. But everyone's sitting in their living room watching it go on. So Kevin, thanks so much for your time. It's greatly appreciated. We'll let you get back to business and look forward to talking in not too far distant future.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.